Have you ever wondered where the television signal you are watching is coming from?
Welcome to True North.
Good evening and welcome to Maine Watch.
On the last edition of Road Diaries, Caleb, David, Jill, Mieko, Shirley, and Sonny traveled together for the very first time. Their destination was Western Maine.
I didn't even think of what if I don't get along with them until almost the day before. It suddenly hit me. What if I hate them and they hate me?
Finally tonight, they're from different backgrounds but have at least one thing in common. They all have a genuine passion for Maine.
Being on TV, I thought, oh, I'm going to sound like a hick with my Maine accent. And I thought, the hell with it. This is a show about Maine. What are they going to expect?
What Lewis Hine did is he tried to photograph the children working because...
I've never been on this road and the scenery is it's great.
And doesn't that look like fun?
It does look like fun.
I want to go.
Have to check that out.
I didn't expect, I thought everybody would be cool, and I didn't think they would be as fun as it was, and everybody's really cool. And we've done a lot of fun stuff.
All on the last episode of Road Diaries.
All right, let's do it. On 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
The 6 Road Diaries travelers have joined together again, this time in southern Maine. Sonny and Jill feel like they've never left.
Hey, does this seem familiar?
Yeah, a little deja vu here.
For Shirley, the time in between trips meant a lot of journal writing and emails.
So I tried not to email him unless I had something really interesting to say.
Mieko's work takes her all over the world. She's back just in time from Japan.
Hi, Nick. How are you?
How are you? Good.
Like the crew, Caleb wondered once again what he'd gotten himself into.
Miraculous.
Perhaps no one was happier to be here than David. All the way down from Skowhegan, he wondered if his truck would make it.
I got down to Fairfield and started skipping like hell and skipped all the way down here.
Where are they off to next? Stay tuned.
Production of Road Diaries is made possible in part through a television demonstration grant from Rural Development, part of the USDA.
I'm going east across the airline now in my beat up old truck. Been kind of low on money this summer, she's been a lean year for luck. My truck started skipping right after I headed for Yarmouth this morning. I didn't think it would make it down here. I could see myself stranded on the pike somewhere and not knowing if I should shout or go blind. I have this thing about having my rig broken down. I get all shook up. And now I'll have to worry about Monday when we get back, and I'll find out if it'll start or I can nurse it on back to Skowhegan. Getting damn things. What in the jumped up Joseph G. Hussafat's wrong with it now?
Today we began our second Road Diaries adventure. It had been 5 months since our last trip. I wondered if everyone was having the same thoughts I was. Would we just pick up where we left off in January, or would we have to get to know one another all over again? I now believe we formulated solid friendships on the first trip, because it was akin to seeing long-lost relatives as we all arrived this morning.
Our travelers kick off their journey at Delorme headquarters in Yarmouth, home of Eartha, the world's largest rotating globe. What better place to begin a trip than at a map maker? The road ahead will take us through the state's two smallest counties, Cumberland and York. From Yarmouth, we'll make our way south to Portland, Arundel, and York, before going north again to Great Chebeague Island on Casco Bay. Although these counties are small, they contain the largest percentage of the state's population. Here in the shadow of Eartha, our Road Diaries crew sets off to find out what makes southern Maine unique. Looking at the state from this perspective can make Maine seem small. It also reminds us of how interconnected Maine really is with the rest of the world. This is the impetus of Delorme's education program led by David McKittrick. Each year, more than 6,000 students participate in the Eartha Education Alliance. David is in the middle of working with a class from the Orland Consolidated School when Road Diaries drops in.
And as you can see behind me, these kids are all going for a journey right around the state of Maine, much like you're doing. Except on a much smaller scale, obviously. I have said to the kids that you guys will be joining them, and you're most welcome to do that. We have, I believe, 7 teams out here, and there are 6 of you, so feel free to join a team.
Which is the smartest team?
Which is the smartest team? Well, the smartest team's standing right here, I believe. No. So the folks that are joining you guys, they're going to need some help here. These adults weren't given the help that you were given, so let them know what's going on.
Where do I start?
Start from put your feet like this.
All right, and I go that way?
Yep.
All right.
5 paces.
When I decided to move from Los Angeles, California to Portland, Maine, I purchased Delorme software to help me chart my route. When I initially made the purchase, I didn't know that Delorme was a Maine-based company. Well, imagine my surprise at seeing Yarmouth, Maine listed as the hypothetical trip destination in the software demo, when in fact my final destination actually was Portland, Maine. This was like a small confirmation from the universe that my decision to relocate my entire life was indeed the right one for me. Even the software knew where I was going.
After saying goodbye to the students from Orland, our crew boards the bus so driver Dave Jewett can do his thing, which is heading down Route 1 from Yarmouth to the next stop, the city of Portland. Here they find a trolley ready and waiting downtown in Monument Square to take them on a tour of the city. As always, Newman is there to greet the trolley riders as they climb aboard.
So, biggest city in Maine, Portland is, 65,000 people. Not a real big city by big city standards, but that's about as big as they get here. I'm sure you were aware of that. Okay, hold on. We're going to go down, jump over this curb right now. This is all at no additional cost to you folks. I think I should make this part of the regular tour. There you go. All right.
Where's our insurance?
And you guys are all from Maine, is that right?
Not originally.
Well, no, but living now in the whole premise of this, you're from different areas in the state?
Yes.
And is anybody from Portland?
Sort of.
Sort of?
Yeah. That's why I lived here when I first moved here.
Okay, but you don't live here anymore?
I live in Yarmouth.
In Yarmouth.
Yarmouth.
Situated on a peninsula with bluffs overlooking the water on both east and west ends, Portland is rated one of the 10 best places to live in the country by Outside Magazine.
As is often the case with cities on the east coast of this country, the oldest part of the city is on the waterfront, and that is the case here in Portland as well. But it's an old city. It's 1632 it was settled by the British. It's unusual that two individuals are given credit for settling here. Their names were George Cleves and Richard Tucker. And they came over from England and they started a little fishing village and trading with the local natives. And although certainly a lot has changed since 1632 and today, you really can say that everything that you see here started with that original village. One question I always get is, why is everything made out of brick down here? Everything's brick, brick and stone, granite, brick and stone. How come? And it's actually a very simple and commonsensical answer. There was a horrible fire in Portland.
1866.
That's right. 4th of July, 1866. Ring the bell for that person. And the fire devastated the city. And when they rebuilt after that fire, they decided wood probably wasn't a real good idea anymore because it went up so bad. 1,400 buildings burned down that day. Tremendous fire. Hard to imagine that today. It gave a lot of up-and-coming architects a chance to show their stuff. They had heard, the word got out that Portland, Maine was rebuilding, and that's why we have so many really neat buildings here from that era, post-1866. Here we are on Commercial Street. Commercial Street runs right along the waterfront, and probably the biggest physical change to this city was the creation of this street. Commercial Street is all landfill. They filled this in 1850. Therefore, if we were on this spot prior to 1850, we'd all be swimming in the harbor together right now. In fact, I'll show you something really neat. Look off to the left-hand side, everybody. See that store over there called Decorum with the red and white letters? Look around the windows on the second floor. There are little chunks of hardware attached to the brick in each corner of the windows. Can you see those? Well, those things were originally put there so they could hang wooden shutters to protect those windows, because the prows of the ships used to break the windows on that side of the street. So in your mind's eye, if you can kind of envision these enormous ships all lined up in front of these warehouses with the bows very close to the building, that's how the city looked back then.
From Commercial Street, it's a short trip up to the East End and Munjoy Hill. Here stands one of the city's most noticeable landmarks, the Portland Observatory. It's been a part of the skyline since 1807. The observatory is often mistaken as a lighthouse by people seeing it for the first time. It's actually a signal tower.
They used to watch for ships coming in from the top of that tower. It was built by a retired sea captain. His name was Lemuel Moody. He actually sold shares to raise the money to have this thing built. Very intelligently designed, too. Notice it's octagonally shaped, which means there is no one big broad side open for the winter storms and winds to catch it and blow it over. So the winds kind of curl around it. And originally, each of the 8 corners around this thing was one long white pine tree. What they did was watch for ships arriving. On a clear day such as this, you can see almost 30 miles out to sea. And when they spotted a ship arriving, if it belonged to one of the merchants in Portland, they'd signal him with a flag from the top of the tower. And it very simply gave the merchant a few hours of advance notice, so now he knows he should reserve dock space and round up the men to unload the cargo, and the merchants paid Moody for that service. What you have here is just a very primitive information service, is all it was. It's historically significant because these towers and these systems used to be in every busy seaport up and down the East Coast. They're all gone. This is the very last one, and we've got it here in Portland, and it's open to the public again. A lot of immigration in the late 1800s, early 1900s. A lot of the immigrant families settled on the east end of the city, which is all well and good, except for the fact that all the well-to-do families were already living on the east end of the city. So what do you suppose they did once all these immigrants moved in? They moved out, of course. That's really what caused this great building spurt up here in the west end of town. It became very much the fashionable end of the city. In many ways, it still is. Western Promenade, way out in the distance. Did you know you can see the White Mountains of New Hampshire from here? Yes. Can you see them out there on the horizon, Mount Washington?
While the rest of the group was enjoying the scenery on the trolley, Caleb was touring Portland High School in a different way.
We go to school earlier in the morning.
Yeah, we get out at 2:10 too. This is the cool thing about Portland High is it's right like downtown Portland.
In the center of.
Yeah, so we have the
Portland Public Library. We have all the downtown areas like stores and...
Yeah, you guys have an open campus, don't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't.
What's the name of your high school?
Washington Academy.
Is that a public school? Or?
Yeah. Well, it's like, kind of like half and half. It's like half public. I don't know, it's weird. They let like some areas come and some don't. I don't know.
Does your mom teach there? Or?
No, she teaches at an elementary school.
Oh.
Yeah, like the little kids and stuff.
Cool.
Eating off campus lets Portland High students take advantage of the many restaurants in the downtown area, offering lunchtime options no school cafeteria could provide. The school is the most racially diverse in the state, where more than 30 different languages can be heard in the halls.
Oh, this is great. Fun. The fortune cookies are the best part of the meal.
For Caleb's tour guides, the city is their campus, which is much different from the small town of Jonesboro where Caleb lives. With 1,100 students, Portland High is nearly 4 times the size of Washington Academy.
Yeah, the lady in charge of this morning, she's like, yeah, everybody's gonna be on trolley while you go to school. I'm like, all right, we're at school, and I have it all.
Something Caleb found they all have in common is that at this point, all 3 are eager to go to college out of state.
Very excited for college to happen, ready to get out of high school. I think it might be impossible to know everybody by name who goes here, or at least remember their name.
You know the people in your classes, but there's so many classes in this school that it's really hard.
I received an awesome tour and was able to compare the high school to mine. It was much bigger and had a more diverse student body. It was neat to see the difference between a smaller and a bigger school. I really enjoyed the idea of having an open campus because they have so many possibilities to eat and go to. Everything is right around the corner for them and they need it. I think Portland is a great place. Thanks to the 2 students who showed me around.
While Caleb ate lunch with Jessica and Sho, the rest of the group went to the Portland Public Market, much to the delight of Shirley.
I am glad that the Portland Public Market has survived. It did have a rocky start with vendors leaving. Now it seems to have settled in place, with vendors offering an interesting mix of foods and beverages. The Portland Public Market is only one of the great places to visit in Portland. We don't take advantages of things right in our own doorstep. Portland is a unique city. With our busy lives, usually we come this way with a full agenda for shopping at the mall. We need to take time to explore Portland.
Being home to Maine's largest population is not without its challenges. The Portland housing market is maxed, and the overflow has caused the towns surrounding Portland to grow anywhere from 10 to 20% over the last decade. The population has sprawled out of the city into rural areas to such an extent that the Brookings Institute has named Portland the sprawl capital of the Northeast. As more and more farmland is lost to development, neighboring towns have had to scramble to set building caps and assess strategies for the future as the population in southern Maine continues to grow.
Hello, everyone. Hello. How are you? Fine. Good. I want to welcome you to Green Memorial. I hope you have a wonderful time here, and I hope we can get to know each other better. And I'm just looking forward to this evening. So welcome. So come on in.
This is Maine's oldest African-American congregation, formed in 1827. Reverend Lawson is the first female A.M.E. pastor in Maine. A.M.E. stands for African Methodist Episcopal.
I'm sure you're saying, now what does that mean? African, of course, it depicts our heritage. And the Methodists, we're from the Methodist movement. And being a Methodist means that there's a methodical way that all of our churches perform their order of service. In all of our services, we sing, we have prayers, we have scriptures, and we have like a responsive reading where the congregation will take part, and then we have the preached word, and then we, as in our tradition, we open the doors of the church. And when we open the doors of the church, that allows someone who doesn't have a church home or someone who has not made a commitment to Christ or God to come in and join our fellowship.
How large is the congregation?
I think it's something like 129 on the roll. We have an attendance anywhere from maybe 60 to 120 people who will come in. In the summertime, we get many, many visitors, and we enjoy visitors. I think we have a very unique style of worship, and it's very inclusive. Everyone, we call this is a family church. And when you're here, you're family. And by the time you leave, you feel like you're family. This is how our membership will treat them. All right, dinner is served. Thank you so much. What we would like for you to do is to sit with someone you don't know, if you will. Sit with someone you don't know, and maybe get to know that person.
You're Sunny.
You said you're from Skowhegan? Skowhegan, yeah. You know Sue McLaughlin, that's where she was born and raised. You know Russ McLaughlin?
Yeah.
How long have you been a member?
18 years,
Oh,
19 years.
Reverend Lawson. She's welcoming, isn't she?
Why don't we start over here, Brother Matthews? Brother Matthews, your table, then your table, then your table, then we'll just do these two. Okay?
The group was about to experience a unique church supper. Shawarma was one of the dishes served. This is chicken in Sudan, where all of the recipes came from. The meal was also served with a special bread called chapati.
Looks a little bit like pizza without the sauce.
This is African pizza.
Dominic Suru of the Izu African restaurant in Portland prepared the meal, exposing every taste bud in the house to a whole new world.
Very good.
I'm not sure.
Get the recipe.
Oh, this looks wonderful.
Dominic learned to cook in his native Sudan before he, his mother, and 6 brothers resettled in Portland.
When we were going to open the restaurant, we couldn't find, and we will have a hard time to get the names, what we can open the restaurant. It's going to be African, but what is African, you know? So we came with a lot of names, and then in the end, my mom came with that name, Izo, where is the village my dad born and all that stuff. So we can remember our dad. So Izo, where is my dad is from.
I don't know if I'm ready for this.
Watch this.
1, 2, 3, 4.
The next day, Dave Jewett points the bus south down the Maine Turnpike. We cross from Cumberland into York County on our way to Arundel. On the bus, the group relives the night before.
The minute you said supper, I thought of a bean supper, because that's what I go to once a month, is a big bean supper. So that's what I had in my mind, and it was so much better because it was different. And I loved everything. I like to try new foods. So because it was so different from what I was expecting, and I should have not expected a bean supper, right?
I kept telling her, it's not going to be a bean supper. It's a black church. It won't be a bean supper. And first of all, I had never seen these little tiny balls. Really, I'm used to the big bowling, and I haven't bowled anyway in about 12 years. But I saw these balls, and I thought it was a joke. I go, what are these little balls? And then people told me I had 3 chances.
And I think everyone that went with us had a really good time too. I know Kathleen, it just seemed like to her it was just really good to get out, and she hadn't bowled for ages either.
Having the people from the church,
Yeah.
I thought that was really great.
Yeah,
from the
that was
A.M.E.
a good
church,
idea.
join us. That was a wonderful touch that we did that together. I love it.
And you had to really talk them into it. Sylvia sat at my table. I'm not going. Finally talked her into it, and she won against all of us. So, and she had the best time. It was really.
They did. They made it fun too.
Yeah, it was more
lively.
fun. I think it was more fun having all of us together than it would had if it would just been the 6 of us. Yeah.
Well, that was fun. I thought I was gonna suck. Well, I didn't quite do like a superstar, but I got 72. How much did you get, Caleb?
Oh,
you don't know. Come on.
I seriously
67.
don't remember. I don't know. I remember.
Oh, yeah.
It's Caleb from bowling. That's my excuse.
The best one is Sonny got an 80. Should be everybody.
Yes.
It was a minor miracle. Maybe I threw it up in the gutter,
The group was reminded of the trip to Western Maine in January and compared the quality of life between what they saw there and here in southern Maine.
There's a lot of opportunity in Portland that you're not going to find in Western Maine. Those people, they're trading off that for the lifestyle they want. And it just isn't the development. I'm sure it's coming there eventually, but right now they're just in different time periods. Western Maine's kind of in a time warp, maybe a little bit. I prefer the life in Western Maine more than, but I like Portland too. I could move to Portland and live there.
I was there last weekend. I had to take my sister down. We went down the old port, and I hadn't been there for like 30 years, so it was quite a change.
What was it like when you had been there 30 years ago?
It was pretty run down, a lot of closed buildings, broken windows. Yeah, so they've changed it a lot. Pretty impressive.
Well, I actually lived in Portland for 6 years, and that was 30, 40 years ago. So the Portland I lived in had no civic center, no shopping centers, and down in the old port section, I had a friend that had an office down there, and you really felt if you went down to that office, you were down in the slums. And at that point in time, you could have bought those buildings for a song, and everybody is saying the same thing. So Portland today is a very, very different Portland from the one I knew. I think Portland is a diverse city now, and Munjoy Hill really reflects that. And that's what I liked about Munjoy Hill, is a feeling of community and togetherness. Didn't you feel that when you were up there, that's where I think a lot of the diversity in Portland is people living, going to church together. We saw that at the church, and just living their lives together.
As I said, I love Portland, and so I'm in Portland, sometimes every day of the week. It varies. So what I think stood out for me was it was like seeing it again through fresh eyes, hearing about the history that I didn't know, and then it reminded me of again why I loved Portland, why I decided to move here. I first came to Maine as a tourist, visiting with a friend of mine. I thought, oh, I'm coming back to Maine one day. Little did I know.
Looking out on the morning rain, I used to feel so uninspired. And when I knew I had to face another day, Lord, it made me feel so tired.
The group is on their way to meet a self-employed wooden boat builder, one of the many in the state who still make their living through this traditional art. Maine's economy has long been based on fine, handcrafted skills such as boat building. Once a major industry in the state, today most boat shops are small businesses and count themselves among the 90% of the companies in Maine that employ fewer than 20 people.
Welcome to Bullhouse Boat Works on this lovely Maine morning. Stefan will be working on some projects as we're going and taking a look at some of the boats, and we'll get over to what he's working on and you can ask questions. I thought it'd be nice to have him working so you can see sort of the primitive processes we use still to build boats.
Dave Corcoran is one of 70,000 people in Maine who describe themselves as self-employed. His specialty is meticulously handcrafted replicas of a boat-building legend whose boats were faster and lighter than any in his day.
The two boats we have in here right now are both designed by Nathaniel Herreshoff, who he was born in 1848 and died in 1938, and of any single designer, by far and away, had the most impact on naval architecture. There's an incredible resurgence in his work today, and I specialize pretty much in Herreshoff. Let's take a look at this boat over here first. This was Herreshoff's personal tender for his larger boats, and he designed it and had it built in 1889, and he used it until 1938 when it was destroyed by the hurricane. And it was in storage, winter storage in Bristol, Rhode Island when it was destroyed. We've got pictures of Herreshoff sailing with 4 or 5 people in it. And it was very interesting because in those days they sailed in suits and ties and hats, and the women all had these long dresses with the collars coming right up. And
no dress properly for sailing today then.
yeah, no. They probably wouldn't go sailing on a day like today.
My brother was a boat builder. He built lobster boats and he built friendship sloops.
Where was he located?
Down in the Rockland, Camden area, down there.
I used to build up in Camden. What was your brother's name?
Francis MacDonald was his name. It goes back a few years.
Yeah.
But I was wondering how this differs from the friendship sloop.
Well, the friendship sloop on the outside has a smooth skin. If you notice on this, that planks overlap. The boats were done this way for 2 reasons. One is when the planks overlap like this, it makes them very strong. Most boats, the planks just butt edge to edge, and they can flex between the frames. Because these planks are actually fastened, if you look on the inside, they're fastened with rivets one to another. And these sections where the planks overlap allow for great structural integrity without very much weight. So a lot of small boats that were used and taken in and out of the water were built this way.
There's a lot more to boat building than cutting and fastening wood, such as lofting, which means to draw up the plans, a process Shirley is familiar with from watching her brother build boats.
When he used to loft boats, because he did it by hand.
We still loft by hand.
Oh, you do? Because a lot of people do it on the computer now, don't they?
Yeah, but you cannot do that with if you're doing reproductions. If you design a boat on the computer, then it's okay. But to have a boat that was designed originally as a model, yeah.
Because I wondered about that. It seems so like some of the old skills are being lost.
No, absolutely not. Actually, the wooden boat building has come back significantly since I started in it, and it's thriving. It's really thriving in Maine.
How long have you been doing this building?
Building boats 17 years, and I was doing cabinet making and furniture making for a good 7 or 8 years before that.
When I worked on the river drive up on Kennebec when I was a kid, I would help. They'd build these boats in the wintertime, but they were very crude. There was flat bottom.
Yeah, with vertical sides.
Oh yeah, all planks, spruce planks, and steel, all steel ribs. And it wouldn't take very long to build them, but it's a completely different world.
Yeah, well, you're nudging up against these logs. This thing would be cracked like an eggshell.
The boat builder's shop seemed comfortable and familiar. I guess maybe it was because it was like any one of a score of shops that I've been in or worked in over the last 40-some-odd years. When I was a kid, we had a little shed where my brother and I and other boys from around the neighborhood would gather to tinker on old junk cars or whatever. When I worked on the river drive, we had shops where we would build or repair the primitive workboats that we used on the river. On several big construction jobs that I worked on, there was a saw shack where an old carpenter reigned. There was in all these shops no pretense at all. Wood, shavings, sawdust, tools, tobacco, saws, motors, grease, oil, wood stoves, laughter, and curses accompanied the work. These were male places mostly, with no sense of much order or hygiene.
After a dry spell, farmers around the state welcome the rain that keeps us from taking a schooner ride. While it helps crops to thrive when it rains, the tourism industry takes a hit. Unable to get out on the water, we decide to head back north to take a tour of Yarmouth and Brunswick, where Sonny and Mieko live.
So we're heading into the village, and it's really just a small little area, about 4 blocks.
Are they fighting development like some of these other towns? You know, a lot of these towns, that was just in the paper yesterday about they're trying to curb development.
Absolutely. I know that there have been, there's some building caps that have been in place. It's a very charming little area, actually.
Do you actually get out around and walk downtown?
I do, but unfortunately, I have to say I've spent more time in my car than I like.
But you're renting, are you?
I'm renting a farmhouse. Yeah, I haven't bought a farmhouse. No. No.
Is this a place where you'd like to settle?
No, I want to go back to Portland.
Yeah.
Actually, that's kind of what I want to do.
Just 20 miles north on Interstate 95 is Brunswick, where Mieko lives.
I really enjoy living in Brunswick because it feels safe. And we especially lived in, when we lived in Boston after I got married. My husband, we lived in Dorchester, a little tough part of Boston. So when we moved up here, it was just like, wow, it's like, this is really nice. And we don't even walk our cars. It's real safe.
What's your street address again?
And this is an old mill. It reminded me of Lewiston when we were, when we were traveling. It's an old mill that's been converted into commercial space.
Lewiston and Brunswick have more in common than mills. Both cities are home to 2 of the top liberal arts colleges in the nation, Bates in Lewiston and Bowdoin in Brunswick, a school David Calder is familiar with.
My daughter went to school here. One of my daughters went to school here, so.
What did she study, Dave?
She was an art major, and she's going to the University of Tennessee now for a master's degree. I think she benefited very much from going to school there because, from a little town in Maine.
That's Rositas. This is Colton.
So she had a good experience?
Yeah, she liked it very much.
With mixed feelings, Mieko thought this would be as good a time as any to let the group know about a big change in her life.
The news is my husband and I are moving to Massachusetts sometime this summer because my husband, as you know, is a marine biologist. He's been looking for a job hopefully past couple months to start maybe the end of this year, like at the beginning of 2002 or even a little bit later. So I thought we had plenty of time. But what happened was he applied for this job with Gorton College, which is in North Shore, Massachusetts. You've heard that college? He is going to be teaching marine biology and a couple of the courses there. And it's really his dream come true job. He's always wanted to be a professor. So I'm really happy for him, and at the same time, since we have to move, I'm very bummed because my husband and I really enjoyed living in Maine.
Are you going to join us on our next 2 trips?
Well, I asked Tammy that if I'm going to get booted off, but she said I could stay.
The next morning, the rain had stopped, and the group was back down south in York. One of the first settlements in the state was York. Maintaining the character and feel of this village is the mission of the Old York Historical Society and its curator, Tom Johnson.
Hi, nice to meet you. Tom Johnson. Tom Johnson. I'm the curator here at Old York, and we're really pleased to welcome you here. So if we want to just walk up this way, we can go to the Jeffords Tavern. Here we are, Jeffords Tavern, built in 1754. And you can all come right in and enter the tap room. Well, we have a fire going on this nice, cool spring morning. I'd like to introduce you to Robert. Robert is going to talk to you about basket weaving. And in the kitchen, you will meet two young ladies who are doing the hearth cooking. And you can assist. And upstairs, we have a woman at the loom who will be showing you how to do those things.
There are 7 buildings in the Historical Society. The oldest is the jail.
Okay. Master, you would be in here maybe for blasphemy or drunkenness? Drunkenness.
Yeah, maybe.
Would you like to?
Yeah, sure.
Do it.
All right. A little wet.
Looking good.
Yeah, just hanging out.
Careful. You okay? Is it comfortable?
Yeah, it's a little wet.
So you would stay here maybe an hour, 2 hours, maybe more, depending on your crime. And everybody in the community would come and make fun of you. Because punishments were supposed to be public.
What a disgrace you are to society.
Yes, Caleb. Everybody can see you.
Half of the Road Diaries crew remained at the tavern participating in household tasks circa 1700.
Well, welcome, Master. Okay, now what we are making is mustard day gingerbread. So, would you like to help us cook?
Yeah, sure. Actually, you've got way too much butter there.
We like a lot of butter because what happens is it burns.
But they would probably use a piece of cloth, I would think, to do that on their finger rather than...
We always use the back of the spoon.
We always use the back of the spoon.
You do? I think I use my finger.
Did you wash your hands, Master?
Of course I did.
Okay.
Did I'm a heathen or something?
I am so excited. I've always wanted to make basket, so this is such a great opportunity for me. Did I do it right?
Yep,
Yes.
that's it.
This looks...
You will have 2 on the outside.
Okay, I did it.
Okay. Now we'll just start with each one. And basically you want to bend it so that it goes over the top edge of that. No, it's okay. I want you to be able to see the top edge of that false rim.
I think my biggest fiasco cooking was when the kids was little, I made a cake, and we used to get a baking soda and stuff like that in bulk. It was in confectioner's sugar. So for some reason, I confused the confectioner's sugar with the baking soda. So I made this nice frosting, crushed it, whipped up good, and I put it on top of the cake. The kids took a bite of that, and Jesus, I've never lived it down since. Baking soda frosting on the cake.
Okay. So, are we all set?
Ready for
Is it all
10?
stirred? Okay. So now we can pour it into our greased pan. Now, how do you suppose we were going to cook this, Master?
Probably in your oven.
And which oven would that be?
The Dutch one?
Yes, we would cook it in our Dutch oven. What we are going to do is take the kettle and place it on the embers, and then place our gingerbread inside the kettle, and then put the cover on top and add coals to the top. So it heats from both sides, and it cooks about the same amount of time as you would in your modern oven.
Alright, so I spin it first.
Spin it towards me. Spin, pinch, move up, and let go. All right. They still use this method in parts of the world.
Probably if the only time that back when this place started, the only time a man would be doing this was if he was a bachelor, right?
Or his mistress was sick.
Yeah.
Or feeling exceptionally generous.
One of the wonderful things about having Jefford's Tavern as a building is the hands-on aspect of history.
Oh, God, this is a terrible position to be in.
I know, it's not very comfortable.
No. And then that's where you are.
As a curator, of course, I'm always concerned with the preservation of objects, but here at this particular site, we see history is really a continuous process of rediscovery, and if you do a hands-on aspect to it, I think you remember and you learn a lot more than just looking at an object behind a plexiglass box or something.
Walking into Old York is like stepping back in time, providing a stark contrast with the modern world rushing by at the edge of the village.
We're now officially part of suburban Boston, which is sort of a scary thing in a way for us, and a large part of our population commutes to the greater Boston area for work.
Similar to the greater Portland area, crowded towns are struggling to keep up with rapid growth. This development stands out against the beautiful backdrop of the white sand beaches and picturesque lighthouses that draw people to the area. Giselle Goodman is one of York County's newest residents.
I've moved to York County and decided to relocate in York County because that's where my family is. But I guess one of the things I get concerned about is I see it becoming overpopulated quickly. It's disturbing in the fact that local Mainers who've grown up here and their families are rooted here and they've worked here all their lives, they can't afford to stay here anymore.
In Skowhegan, where I'm from, there's a large paper mill, so that keeps the tax base reasonable. So the prices of property are pretty stable. There's still enough jobs to pay half decent. But that area is more like, the way Maine has always been. It's dependent on natural resources, the lumber and farming and manufacturing, and less pressure from tourism too.
There's got to be a middle ground that's found. There's the extremists who say don't build anything, no development at all, and the other side where every piece of valuable property should have a house on it. I think there's got to be a middle ground.
Well, the native Mainers, they have not made the money that some of the out-of-staters have.
That's true.
Their land is their retirement. So if they stop development and they cannot develop their land, and I see both sides of it, but I have it right in my own family, and if they can't develop their land, they're not going to have their money for retirement because they don't have the cash. The land is all they've got.
I think it's interesting too. You're in a rustic, and you want people. You want more people, and I'm kind of curious why you think that area needs more people.
We'd like to bring in more business. A lot of the children grow up and move away to get jobs that jobs that'll afford them to live. The wages are low, and jobs are scarce at times. And when the census was done this year, I think we were one of the top counties that our population had declined.
I have to say, I've never been to Aroostook County. That's me, and I should.
I really love Aroostook County, and I don't think my husband and I will ever leave the area. As for our girls, I don't know. It will be their decision. Many of our young people do leave the area for employment reasons, and some return after a short stint elsewhere. It saddens me when I hear people originally from the area come back to visit and say they would never come back here because there is nothing here for them. Maybe this is true for them, but the county does have a lot to offer, and life is what you make of it.
That evening, a smaller bus awaits back north in Yarmouth to take us to the Chebeague Island ferry. Chebeague is the largest island on Casco Bay. It's one of only 13 islands in the state with year-round residents.
I have written in my journals before that we are losing a lot of our social activities. I think it is also true in Portland. People used to travel together in trolleys and trains. Now we are alone in our cars. There used to be such secret orders as the red men, moose, and owls that competed for people to join. These orders no longer exist, and the ones we have are struggling. People laugh together in theaters watching the old variety shows. Now we sit alone in our houses watching TV. People come to Maine looking for a simpler life. I am not sure where it is.
Morning on the island was foggy and mysteriously beautiful. I went for a jog and a little quiet time at the beach. I heard a noise in the water in front of me when I was sitting at the beach, so I looked up. What a nice surprise! There it was, a seal came out of the water and onto the beach to check me out. I wondered if I interrupted his quiet time, so I walked back to the inn.
Leaving the island gave people a chance to reflect on their experiences in southern Maine. Some are happy to live here, some wouldn't mind living here, and some were eager to get home.
As southern Maine becomes more and more important in the great scheme of things, I am more than happy to quietly retreat to my humble and largely anonymous part of the state and its lack of sparkling connections to the era of globalization.
These trips to different parts of Maine have given me the opportunity to look at our state with new eyes. Too often we take for granted the very things that visitors to Maine find awe-inspiring.
Join us for the next edition of Road Diaries when we visit Hancock and Washington counties to discover how this region is tied to the rest of the state. We'll compare the beauty of Acadia National Park and the hustle and bustle of Bar Harbor to the much quieter outlying areas of Cutler, Lubec, and Eastport, which is the most easterly commercial shipping port in the United States. Caleb and his friend Sebastian show us around the Machias Wild Blueberry Festival, where the community comes together every year at the peak of the blueberry harvest to celebrate life down east. And you'll meet me, John McDonald, as I tell the group a story or two along the way. All on the next edition of Road Diaries.
Production of Road Diaries is made possible in part through a television demonstration grant from Rural Development, part of the USDA.
Oh, this one's Shirley.
That one was white and this one is brown.
I have no idea.
You don't know?
You don't know?
I'm not an expert on everything. Just most everything.
I have a question. Can you tell me why it's called a saltwater taffy?
I'm not sure about that.
You are not sure. What was the question?
Any of you? Saltwater taffy?
What was the question?
Why it's called a saltwater taffy? You asked somebody? Maybe she did.
Do you got saltwater taffy? Water taffy. Oh, it's taffy. It's not taffy. Mine was taffy. Taffy. Well, I don't think I got the answer. I got one answer. That's right.
There you go. It's made by the salt water.
Really? That's it? We got the answer. We're in a Maine PBS t-shirt that delivered by Nick, the chief photographer. Congratulations.
Maine PBS.